Welcome to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection since 1991. And we want to thank you for joining us on this Wednesday, June 1st. We hope you enjoyed the Memorial Day weekend. We would like at this time on the Owatonna Today Show to welcome our new show sponsor, Fairway Foods. We're so glad to have them aboard, and we always welcome new sponsorship. Be sure you get down to Fairway Foods and visit our new friends there. And welcome, Fairway. Well, the Owatonna Today Show has an informative show for you today. We're going to be spending the entire show with Vicki Jensen, our senator down in the legislative session, and we're going to talk just about the session that just completed and get an update from her. And then to all our Owatonna guests and viewers, if you have any suggestions for show topics or guests that you would like to see on the show, please feel free to contact us at owatonnatoday@charter.net or by contacting the show's producer, Leanne T, at 390-5751. Now, we will take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with Vicki Jensen, so please stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Brenda with the Mortgage Office of Brenda Bednar, aligned with American Mortgage and Equity Consultants, where closings feel right from the beginning. I'm a proud supporter of the Owatonna Today Show.
Owatonna Public Utilities, real people, real reliable, real progress. Making life a little easier day after day, taking pride in our community, listening to what you say, a voice you can talk to. We're growing with you in mind in everything we do. Owatonna Public Utilities.
Greetings from the Steele County Historical Society. We invite you to visit us and enjoy your county's history at the History Center and Village of Yesteryear. Check our website for current exhibits and monthly programs.
Welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection. And we're here visiting with Vicki Jensen. Hello, Vicki.
Hello, good morning.
So, life as a senator, very busy lately.
Yeah, very busy.
These last couple of weeks, and you're full of all sorts of information for us today. So,
Well, there was a lot that happened, and some that's maybe still left to do. So,
well, our work is never done. That's job security, right?
Right.
Well, why don't you share with us, how did the session go this time? How do you feel it went?
Well, we did accomplish some really good things, and we can talk about those later, but the finance bill, we were able to pass that and come to some agreement, and we were able to pass a really good tax bill. And the governor's taking a look at both of those. Those were the bigger bills that were passed. And I think he might be suggesting and hoping to be able to come back maybe in a special session and take another look at a bonding bill that was sent over very late in session from the House to the Senate. And we got an amendment on the bill that we needed in order to pass it out of our body and sent it back, but they adjourned before they could take the amended bill back up again. So there really was an agreement. Both bodies did pass the bill, but the House will have to take a look at the amendment and see if that's something that they would agree to. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that they had already agreed to it, but that's what happens in politics, and you'll hear a lot from everyone what did or didn't happen. So I'm waiting to see if we get called back for special session for that.
And bill is a word you hear passed around, and that's constantly in the news, whatever, you know.
Right.
But there's a lot to a bill. People say, because it's talked about in a singular,
right,
people think it's one thing.
Right.
And how do bills get developed? And I know you wanted to share with our viewers a little bit about the conference committees and what they do.
And it's really interesting because Minnesota is really well known for how it handles its bills through conference committees. If you think back, there used to be this little cartoon show for PBS where here's how a bill is made, and it starts in the House, and then it goes and gets passed to the Senate, and then it gets for signature. Well, that's at the federal level, I believe. It's not at the state level. Every state has a different process, and they can set up their own way that works. In Minnesota, there are two bills that are introduced at the same time, and they're the same language when it starts. One starts in the House and one starts in the Senate. The bill works its way through the committee process in both bodies at the same time. So you can imagine by the time it reaches the floor of either the House or the Senate, those bills no longer look the same.
So when you say committee process, it's these committees that are formed. How are they, again?
Those committees are set up, these are standing committees. The standing committees are set up at the beginning of session that reflect different sections of statute of law.
So you might volunteer to be on a certain committee.
Correct. I'm on
Okay.
transportation, I'm on
Okay.
education, and I'm the vice chair of commerce. So Commerce Committee passes bills or looks at bills that deal with the statutes that deal with the Commerce Department and the commerce statutes that we have in law. And each committee is set up to handle a different part of our law.
All right.
So that's how that works. So go ahead.
So when you say when they come into the conference committee, once it passes them.
Well, this isn't the conference committees.
Okay.
These are the standing committees.
All righty.
So now you've got a bill that's passed out of the House and a bill that's passed out of the Senate. They don't match. How do we get the language to match? What happens is you set up a conference committee to look at the language in both bills, and it's usually 3 or 5 members from the House and 3 or 5 members from the Senate. They get together. So now you have a committee that's made up of the House and the Senate to take a look at the 2 bills and try to agree on language so you come out of it with 1 bill.
Wow.
So, and that can happen on a budget bill or a tax bill, which it always does, unless the language matches, and that way you can pass it. You have to go to conference. If you can't agree, you have to go to conference committee or the bill will not pass.
And as these bills are working their way through all these different standing committees and conference committees, they're made up of representation from the state, people from the state. And of course, everybody has their voters in mind when they're looking at these, correct?
Absolutely.
So when you say agree on wording, that's what's being decided.
Correct.
Everyone's trying to stand up for, hopefully, are standing up for their
Right.
vote, the people that voted them in.
Or their caucus, or their body.
Okay.
So that is true. That is how that works. And that's why the conference committee is set up as an open process where they can take testimony. And what they're doing is called side by side. And they have 2 bills and they vote on each section. Do we take the House language or the Senate language? And there's language that's not in the Senate bill or not in the House bill, and you can add and take language.
Okay.
And that's why when it comes out, the language is there, but it looks different. The problem we also have is during those conference committees, people can add brand new language. And if the conference committee agrees to it, it will end up in the bill. And that's why as legislators, you have to follow those conference committees so closely, because maybe something that you didn't know would end up in a bill can through that conference committee process, as long as the conferees agree. Once that's all agreed to, they pass the conference committee report, it goes back to the floor. So the last night of session, what we were voting on was the conference committee reports.
Oh, so based on what passed and what didn't pass,
In the conference
language
committee.
might just not have sat right with some, or did sit right with
Well,
them.
it's going to be different because they've combined the House and the Senate language together.
Is it possible quickly, could you give us a kind of an example of maybe how a certain bill that passed started
Sure.
in one way, and then this is what we saw as a result?
Well, I can tell you better last year was the same thing, and the buffer bill language that didn't get a committee hearing actually showed up in a conference committee because someone had made an amendment to put it into the conference committee report, and they agreed and voted it in, and that's how it ended up on the floor.
Okay, all righty. Now, could we talk about, now that you've kind of laid the groundwork for
Sure.
that, could we talk about what passed in this last legislative session, the bills that were passed?
Okay, well, there were a lot of policy omnibus bills that work just like a finance bill or a tax bill, but a finance bill, because it deals with money and targets, that comes all together. So you'll see a lot of provisions all at one time. So we passed the finance bill at $400 and some million. That was the agreed to amount. We passed a tax bill, which works the same way because it has revenue, and that was $250 some million the first year, $500 million the second biennium, and then we were not able to pass a transportation bill or a bonding bill. Like I said, we tried to get that done, and we're not able to do that.
But you did pass a compromise package for tax cuts.
That's correct.
And a mixed tax relief to farmers and businesses. How was that? That passed?
That did pass, and I'm a co-author on that bill, and you can get up to 40% that's related to the bonding for schools refunded. So that's a huge help and aid for, they take a big hit when we build our buildings in rural Minnesota. It gets most of the burden to have to provide the money to make that happen. I also got in that bill as an author a $1,000 tax credit for student loan debt.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah,
the
I
tax
worked really
credit
hard
for
on
college
that.
students with loan debt. And how is that going to work?
Well, if your payments are 10% of your adjusted gross income, you can apply for a $1,000 refund tax credit, refundable, which will be a big help to those that have such a high debt for their college education.
And is that a one-time offering, the $1,000 tax credit, or would that be you could do that on a year?
It's every year.
Wow, so every year they could do
Yes.
that? Oh, okay.
Yep, it's ongoing.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And then what was this was one that I've heard on the news, why did they passed to remove the annual tax credit on cigarettes and tobacco?
Why did they remove it?
Yeah, they voted to remove remove automatic annual tax hike for cigarettes and other tobacco products?
Well, I know it originally was in I thought it was still in there.
Okay, maybe I wrote it down then wrong.
That's
okay.
my understanding.
Okay.
But I know there were a lot of people concerned about that.
Okay,
So I might have to double back and make sure. But my recollection, my memory is that it was in the bill.
Okay, all righty. And what are another one was expanded bid to Minnesota parents with child care costs. Was that passed, or is that still being worked on?
The child care, I do not believe that ended up in the final package.
Okay, all righty. That was just something that they're still talking.
Right. Well, there is a you get a tax credit for that is in the bill.
Okay. All
Yep.
right,
I can't tell you the dollar amount, but that is in there too.
Okay. Now, do you know offhand, would that be just for a certain income bracket or for everyone?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly the details on that. But we also had in the budget bill the removal of tax for pensions for military pensions.
Wow, great.
Yes, and I was author of that bill too.
Oh, wow. Well, good for you. Is there any additional things that pass that we might not be aware of that are important, but that we just don't hear through the media?
Well, when you talk about childcare, that's one of the issues and one of the challenges we face in rural Minnesota. I did have two provisions that were able to get passed. Minnesota Initiative Foundations get $1.5 million to help get child care providers trained and rated parent aware. And I also passed a legislative task force that's going to take a look at why the accessibility and affordability of child care.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
We will take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors and we'll be right back, so please stay with us.
Looking for that perfect birthday party idea for your child? I have exactly what you're looking for, a pool or gym party at the West Hills Tennis and Fitness Center. Hi, this is Brad. Contact me today at 774-7102 to schedule the party every child will love. Birthday party packages are available year-round. West Hills Tennis and Fitness Center, encouraging and promoting a healthy lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Glenn Mager. And I'm Michael Mager with the Brick Mager Funeral Home and the Medford Funeral Home. At Brick Mager, we are privileged to have served the families of Steele County community for 118 years.
Whether you choose traditional burial or cremation, we promise the tribute your loved one deserves with the peace of mind that you require.
We are proud to be part of the Owatonna Today Show.
Hi, this is Barry Gillespie, president of ERA Gillespie Real Estate, where our pledge is to save you money, save you time, and simplify your life. And we're proud supporters of the Owatonna Today Show.
Hello, I'm David Einhaus with the Owatonna Foundation. Thank you to all of our donors who have helped make Owatonna a better place to live. Will you join us today with a financial gift? Owatonna Foundation is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show.
Welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection. We're here visiting with Vicki Jensen, our senator. How you doing again?
Good.
Okay. Let's. We were having such an interesting conversation on what has passed. Another thing that's passed that you'd like to shed some light on are the tax exemption.
Well, there's a new tax exemption that I think will help rural and smaller businesses with your first $100,000 for income tax is exempted, so that you're able to, it's kind of a unique way to make a progressive tax policy with tax cuts, which is really kind of difficult to do. So it will, every business will qualify, but if you make less, it'll be a bigger impact to you, and I think this will really help our smaller businesses.
Good. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about what was passed in regards to broadband and the broadband internet and why that's important.
Sure. I've been on the bills for this and been advocating for it for a long time. We wanted $100 million. The governor agreed, but the House came in at $15 million, and I think the final result, we get $35 million in the border-to-border broadband fund. And what that means is that money is available at the state level for the providers that we have to access, to make sure that we get some of the, and we want fiber. Fiber is more flexible, and it can adjust, and you can change it for more bandwidth based on what you do with the connectivity on the ends versus having to relay wire or use telephone. It's just a better way to make sure that not only now, but in the future, we're able to keep up with the demands that we need, because we know that data is what drives our economy right now, and if you're in an area that can't access that, you're really missing a lot of opportunity for economic development and just getting information back and forth. So this was helpful, but it really needs to be much more. We've done it with electricity, where we've been able to help out, and the state has helped out to get that across the state. We can do that. This is infrastructure and something we really need to invest in.
Would that apply, the broadband internet, does that help the rural areas at all?
Absolutely. The way that we farm now, I had a press conference, and I talk about, it doesn't matter if you're in the classroom, in your office space, or in your tractor. Data is important to how we do things. And agriculture is one of the biggest changes that has happened, is that we have precision technology when it comes to application processes and yields, everything. We need to get
knowing when to buy and sell.
Oh, absolutely. You need access to that information, to that data, to make the kinds of decisions and choices no matter where you are. And especially when it comes to education, which is something I'd like to talk about too. But this educational portion, if the students have it at school and they go home and they can't do their homework because it's based on the internet and broadband availability, those kids are put at a disadvantage, and I would really like to see us take care of that and make sure that those students have access to it too.
Technology, the wonderful world.
Exactly, it's our future.
Even the high and low spots with cell phones today,
That's right.
We just keep plugging away at it, don't we? Vicki, would you like to talk about also what was passed for the racial equality?
Right, I served on that committee, and it's pretty stark, the issues we're having in Minnesota when it comes to disparity between groups of people. And the income actually has dropped below levels years ago for certain parts of our population. And it was an initiative of the governor, and it's really important for rural areas as well to take a look at, are there challenges and are there obstacles in the way that are creating, or at least magnifying some of this. And so what I concentrated in that area is education. If we can get education to some folks that might have those obstacles, I think we can create some really good solutions together and try to make this work. I was able to get some adult basic education money to help people that are new to the country or new to the area, are just weren't able to complete their education for some reason. There are job availabilities and some training availabilities that are there that we can help with and make sure that they understand that this is something that they can do by getting them into the classroom and finding out what it is that they would like to do and what's available in the community. We can get these people to work and productive and feeling good about.
So that was 35 million and around, correct?
Right, and I concentrated on education, but most of it had to do with job development and making sure that we get things into areas that are kind of difficult to get. So for instance, Somali and Hmong is a language that was only spoken, it was not written. So because of that, it's not that they can't read English, they just don't read. So to put out resources in a way that we would expect people to be able to do, it doesn't work that way. So we have to really take and understand how that works and get that information to those communities in a way that works for them. So it's an important process.
And I know you also wanted to mention this new drug sentencing and how that worked.
Right, and this is something I worked with our local police and sheriff's office, county attorneys, and really tried to get an understanding because there were recommendations that were made by a group that's set up to make those kinds of sentencing guidelines are set up to be done through that commission. And the recommendations that came out, I know locally there were a lot of issues with. So the chair of the Judiciary Committee spent a lot of time working with all of those groups and determining what is it that's creating the issue where we are. But Minnesota has different sentencing guidelines when it comes to drugs. And we were putting a lot of people in jail for a long time for pretty minor offenses, and they really felt like we needed to take a look at that to open up some space. We're running out of space in our prisons, and either we have to build a new prison or we figure out how to adjust these sentencing guidelines. And after speaking with my local authorities and making sure I understood how that worked, they were more comfortable with the Senate and the Senate position and then the commission. And if we would not have passed something this year, those guidelines would have went into effect automatically.
So a lot of good things have happened.
Yes.
A lot of good things have been passed.
Yes.
And I don't want to end the show on a negative note, but not necessarily negative, but the two that are getting the big, that failed, kind of shed some light on that, and that it's not a done deal. Correct?
Right. Well, I don't believe we will find a comprehensive way to handle our deficit in transportation. The House really never changed their position from the beginning. The Senate, we came down 3 times, and it's not a process where you want to keep negotiating with yourself.
Right.
There needs to be a proposal back, and that really did not happen substantively. And there is an issue with light rail, and if we can't, I'm befuddled by the whole thing. If that community believes that they are okay raising taxes to get light rail, I really, and if it's not coming out of any of our money, I really struggle with why we would tell them that they cannot do that. It would be like somebody telling us we don't need expansion on Highway 14 because the state pays into that process. We can't pay for that on our own. So I struggle with that. I really hope people understand that gas tax does not go to light rail. It just doesn't.
Right.
And if they want to raise their sales tax to get it there, it would also be like telling us we couldn't raise a sales tax to do any other project here. And I know we would not feel good about that. And so hopefully in the future, we're able to figure out sustainable funding, but at this point I don't really see. We might be able to use some one-time money and get a few projects done, and Highway 14 had some money in one-time money. If we go back and the governor decides we're going to take a look at the bonding bill, I think it's a great loss for rural Minnesota if we do not get a bonding bill or some one-time money.
Can I ask too, the real ID?
Yes.
We talked about that last time you were on
Yeah.
the show. We thought, that might get done, and there was some
Right.
hang-ups with that.
Well, and it might come back at a special session too, you don't know. But they came real close to getting it completed. I think they just were stuck on a few items. It's an important issue, and I'm hopeful we'll come up with a solution so people can assure that they can get the ID they need to travel.
Right.
They can still use their passport right now, but we need to
Right.
do this.
It's just with the TSA lines the way they are now, and then the other parts of the country are on board
Right.
with it. So we just have to figure out where our niche is.
That's correct.
Okay. Vicki, as always, hard at work for us.
Yeah.
We appreciate you, and thank you for coming on the show and devoting so much time to educating our viewers.
Absolutely.
Okay, we wish you well in the next sessions to come.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great summer. We will take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back, so please stay with us.
Amy Swain Hearing Centers is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show. I'm Dr. Amy Swain, and I want everyone to hear better. I'm Deb Gillard with Brookdale Owatonna. We bring new life to senior living in our Alzheimer's and dementia care and our assisted living care communities. Brookdale Owatonna is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show.
Hi, I'm Tim Anderson, the owner of Anytime Fitness, where we make getting healthy affordable and convenient. Anytime Fitness is a proud sponsor of the Owatonna Today Show.
Welcome back to the Owatonna Today Show, your community connection, and it's time for that time in the show when we read about our community events. The Steele County Historical Society has awarded 3 recipients with a Historic Preservation Award. KIK Graphics and Printing in Blooming Prairie, Kotke Jewelers, Jeff's Hall on the Pillsbury campus. The awards recognize outstanding projects and groups that have been purposeful in preserving historic buildings in Steele County. Owatonna, Minnesota Dirty Deeds Canine Yard Cleanup, Bark in the Park. A Dirty Deeds Canine Yard Cleanup. Just join us at Lake Chase Dog Park for a featured vendor and take home a doggy treat bag. It's June 2nd, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., Lake Chase Dog Park, free doggy bag. Habitat for Humanity of Steele-Watseka area is currently recruiting an AmeriCorps Vista who will develop a homeowner education program focused on financial literacy. Habitat will be accepting applications for the Vista position through Friday, June 3rd. Individuals interested in the position can call the Habitat office at 507-446-0112 for more information. Brooktree Golf Course presents Wine, Women, and Golf for the very beginner or non-golfer. And then it'll be on Tuesday, June 7th, National Women's Golf Day. It's a $10 fee. The cities of Faribault, Northfield, and Owatonna invite the public to attend a free rain garden workshop planning for pollinators on Saturday, June 11th, 2016, and the workshop is 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at Faribault Public Works Building at 1200 Bellevue Trail in Faribault. Space is limited and pre-registration is required. Individuals may contact the City of Owatonna Water Quality Specialist Brad Rademacher at 507-774-7300. Well, that's it for community announcements today. We want to thank you for joining us, and we invite you to tune in with us on Friday, June 3rd, when we'll have Darla down at the Owatonna Public Library, and she handles the children's programs there. So we'll visit with her, and then we'll be visiting on location with Dr. Middle, and we're going to have a conversation. So we hope you'll tune in then. Thank you, and we'll see you on Friday.